Global revenues from streaming and subscription music services was up about 51.3% in 2013 to break the $1 billion mark for the first time ever. That said, though, data from the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry indicates that global music sales were down 3.9% overall at about $15 billion in 2013. That essentially points in part to rising popularity of either buying or consuming music online. Global revenues from subscription and advertising-supported streams now account for about 27% of digital revenues. That's up from 14% in 2011. That's the likes of Spotify and Pandora and so on. Over 28 million people worldwide now pay for a music subscription, up from 20 million in 2012 and 8 million in 2010. Digital downloads do remain a key revenue stream. They account for about 67% of digital revenues around the world. Now, in Kenya and the larger part of Africa, however, digital music sales and services simply haven't taken off to the same extent that we've just seen with those numbers. Now, where they have taken root, they're generally grossly abused, in part due to weak or virtually non-existent implementation of intellectual property laws. And that, in effect, denies some fairly talented performers their rightful dues. The question is, though, how can that be addressed? Let's find out. Gachui is the Managing Director of the Kenya Association of Music Producers. She's live in a studio with us tonight. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Ms. Gachui. In this country, roughly 7 out of every 10 copies of software tend to be pirated. Is the situation the same in the music industry? Is piracy as endemic as it is in software?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, Rama. And it's interesting. I think the music industry, unfortunately, isn't as regulated in terms of statistics as the software industry would be. And that's one of the works in progress that we are seeing with the development of the music industry. I would say that it is prevalent, definitely. I don't know if that we can say it's 7 out of 10, but I do know that there are a few, shall we call them radical enthusiasts who would argue that piracy could even be one of the distribution models, because we have to be practical about how we approach the Kenyan context. And ultimately speaking, there is a reason why this market still exists and why the pirates still exist. But to say that there are statistics right now, I think would be going a little bit far, but that is a work in progress.
Indeed, but in some conversations with producers who are members of the organization you represent, I've had some argue that, look, I don't make money off album sales, I actually make my cash off royalties and perhaps at the same time quite a few concerts as well. Would that accurately describe the status of the industry today?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because there are anyway different streams of revenue that are available, as you rightly say, live performances for both performers and those producers who happen to be performers as well. But there's also a change in the way the market is consuming music. You mentioned earlier in your intro about downloads and streaming. We haven't seen a lot of that, as you rightly pointed out, in Kenya, but it is a growing field. So I think the market has also determined what type of use or exploitation of this music, and we found that physical sales have definitely dropped. So yes, their income has been affected.
Indeed. Finally, Ms. Gachui, I understand compliance with paying royalties among broadcasters and, of course, digital sales platforms in Kenya has been a significant problem.
True.
Why is that?
Well, it's a good question. We've been asking ourselves the same question. This last 2 days, we've had a very interesting seminar run by WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. They have an initiative called NERICOM, which is a neighboring rights committee. And IFPI, who you've also mentioned, were present, as well as the Performers Council called SCARPER. And this is one of the questions that we tackled. What is causing our users, in terms of the broadcasters and the digital platforms, not to pay? And a lot of it is because we have to acknowledge that technology has taken a huge leap, and maybe the law has taken its time to do its catch-up, to be able to regulate the kind of transactions that we are seeing. But in terms of the broadcasters, who have been around for a lot longer, we have been in negotiations with them, both radio and TV, and a lot of the questions that they have put to us, we feel we have adequately answered, because it's not a new thing. Obviously, it's not specific to Kenya, it's not specific to Africa. You have used music, and you've used recorded works, then it's time to pay for them. And so that these people who are creators and rights holders in these musical works and audiovisual works and sound recordings can get their rightful dues. And by that I mean the producers and the performers, of course.
Indeed. We'll
But
have to leave it there,
definitely, it is a
unfortunately,
good
though,
question.
for the time being.
If you have an answer, I'd happily.
I do apologize for that. We have to leave it there for the time being, though. Thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Joan Gachui. She's the Managing Director there of the Association of Music Producers here in the Kenya.